You walk into your neighbor's camp with 2 baskets of dried fish. He needs fish. You need arrow shafts. And he happens to have a pile of them leaning against his shelter. This is the moment economics textbooks love to describe. 2 people, 2 goods, a simple trade. This is supposedly how money was born. The story goes because eventually you'd get tired of needing the exact thing your neighbor happened to want back. Accept that moment as a foundation for how money actually began. Almost certainly never happened the way you were taught. Here's what you were probably told sometime in a classroom without anyone ever citing where the idea came from. Before money, humans bartered. Directly trading goods for goods was clumsy and inefficient, so eventually someone invented currency to fix the problem. Simple, tidy, logical. This idea isn't ancient. It's from 1776 from a Scottish economist named Adam Smith, who described exactly this kind of barter scenario in The Wealth of Nations to explain why money must have emerged. It's a compelling story. It's the story your ancestors' economic life has been reduced to for nearly 250 years. So here's the real question. What does the actual evidence say happened? In 1985, anthropologist Caroline Humphrey set out to find a real-world example of a pure barter economy, the kind Adam Smith described operating as the default way people traded before money existed. She looked at the anthropological record across cultures and time periods. She found nothing. Her exact conclusion, published in her research, no example of a pure barter economy has ever been described, let alone the emergence of money from it. Sit with that for a second. The foundational origin story for money, the one repeated in textbooks for generations, has no documented example of actually happening. Not one confirmed society that ran primarily on stranger-to-stranger barter before adopting currency, which means the version of ancient economic life you were taught wasn't a simplification of the truth. It was closer to a guess that got copied so many times it started sounding like a fact. If it wasn't barter, then what was actually happening in your ancestors' camps and villages? Anthropologist and historian David Graeber spent years researching this exact question and published his findings in a book called Debt: The First 5,000 Years. His conclusion reframes almost everything. Long before coins or formal currency, humans ran on credit. Not credit in the modern banking sense, but something more basic: memory, trust, and social obligation. You didn't need your neighbor to want your fish at the exact moment you had extra of it. You gave him fish because he needed it, and everyone in the community simply remembered that he now owed you something. No object needed to change hands to represent that debt. The debt existed as a shared social fact, tracked in the minds of people who saw each other constantly and had every reason to remember who owed what. Feel how different that is from the classroom story. Money wasn't invented to replace awkward face-to-face trade. It was invented much later to formalize a trust system your ancestors had already been running for thousands of years without it. Here's where the evidence gets harder to dismiss. Archaeologists have recovered clay tablets from Mesopotamia, dating back to around 3000 BCE, thousands of years before the first coins existed anywhere in the world. These tablets, written in cuneiform script, record debts. Who owed grain to whom? Who owed labor? Who owed livestock and when it was due? A functioning credit economy tracked in writing existed a full 1,500 years before anyone had minted a single coin. And if that doesn't unsettle the classroom story enough, consider what economist Milton Friedman documented in a 1991 essay about the island of Yap in the Western Pacific. The Yapes used enormous stone discs, some over 10 feet across, as a form of currency called rye. Here's the detail that should stop you: the stones frequently never moved at all. Ownership simply transferred in the collective memory of the community. Everyone agreed who owned which stone, even when it sat exactly where it had always sat, sometimes at the bottom of a lagoon. Read that again. A society successfully ran an economy where the currency itself didn't need to physically exist in your hand or even be visible to hold and transfer value. What mattered wasn't the object. What mattered was the shared trusted record of who owed what to whom. So let's reconstruct what this might have actually looked like in a small ancestral community. Picture an elder sitting near a fire at dusk, not holding a ledger, but holding the entire village's economic memory in her head. Which family still owed a share of last season's grain? Which hunter had given more meat than he'd received back? Which debts had already been quietly settled through a favor nobody wrote down? This wasn't primitive. This was a functioning economic system, running on human memory and social accountability, doing exactly what a bank does today, just without the building. Here's the twist that changes how you should think about value itself. Money was never really about the coin, the shell, or the stone disc. Those were just tools for holding a place in a much older, much more human system, a shared record of mutual obligation. The object was never the point. The trust was the point, and the object was just a convenient way to make that trust portable between people who didn't know each other well enough to simply remember. Which brings the whole thing back to you right now today. Every time you send a friend money through an app after they cover your half of dinner, you're not doing something new. You're running the exact same system your ancestors ran around a fire 10,000 years ago, a record of who owes what, tracked and trusted with the actual object, almost irrelevant to the transaction. The app just replaced the elder's memory with a server. Every credit card swipe, every "I'll get you back next week," every group chat split in a bill. That's not modern convenience layered on top of ancient barter. That's the same ancient credit system your ancestors invented wearing a different interface. So the next time you walk into a store or split a check or send a quick payment to a friend, remember what's actually happening underneath it. You're not just buying something with money. You're doing what your ancestors did around that fire long before a single coin existed, trusting a shared record of who owes whom, and letting that record, not the object in your hand, carry the real value.